In this video, I'm going to show you guys how we can create some simple labels. Normally, you of course get the label from your client, right? If you get paid to do this job, they will send you the labels because they want to showcase those labels. But in a lot of cases, when we don't have any freelance work yet, then we need to kind of create our own labels. And it's very time consuming, and we as 3D artists don't really know how to create compelling labels, right? So there are loads of websites which have like free label makers with some templates, and they are quite easy and handy to use. So in this case, I chose the website called Canva. You can use any website, any program, you can create your own, but I just want it to be a bit simple and easy for this tutorial. In this case, when you're in Canva, you can search for a template. So if you go to templates, and then we can look for a wine label, something like that. So Canva is not necessarily free, but it has some free templates. And that is what we're looking for. So you can choose here. I think I chose this one. And then you can customize this template if you want to. So the cool thing about this is that you can literally just customize anything here. But keep in mind, pictures like these labels have watermarks. And if you want to download it without the watermarks, then you have to pay for Canva, right? You can download them with watermarks. In this case, you cannot even see the watermark, so it's not that bad. But you can also just import your own, elements or your own images that you have found, right? So you can do a lot here. Just make sure that you're not using the pro version if you don't want to pay, which is totally fine. We don't have to pay for anything in this class or course. And if you don't even want to create the label yourself, then you can also just download the files I provided. So let's say I'm gonna download this. Then you click on share. When you download your file, the PDF print is probably the highest quality. So if you want to edit some stuff there and then go inside Photoshop or any other editing program, I would highly suggest downloading the PDF print. But if you want to instantly throw it inside Blender, you can do PNG. I think that's the best in this case. Yeah, let's do PNG. And then you can, of course, download a free watermark draft. Inside Blender, I want you to delete the default cube. Then go to the front view, which is 1. Now, let's go to Edit, Preferences, look for an add-on, and this add-on is called Import Images as Planes. Now, when you tick that on and save your preferences, you can click on Shift-A, Image, Images as Planes. And here you can import your newly downloaded label. So let's rotate this label for 90 degrees around the Z-axis and look at the label itself. So go to the viewport shading material preview. You can see that mine is flipped, so I need to rotate it again around the Z-axis for 180 degrees. And let's go to shading. Inside shading, I again will just go to the front view, zoom a little bit in, and I go to the rendered viewport shading. Now, let's go to the render properties and go to cycles. Cycles is way more realistic than Eevee, and that is why we use it. I'll also put my device at GPU. Now you can see that for this plane, which automatically has this material applied to it, we have one image texture, a principled shader, and that creates what we can see here. I do, however, want to put my light a bit closer, so I'm going to move it in front and a bit closer here and see what is happening. So here we have a decent looking label. Now, I don't want this alpha to be connected because I don't need any translucency. In all honesty, you could just use this label and that's it. But we can always go a step further and create really something more interesting. What if we want this label, but with golden letters? Then we need to create a mask. And most masks look like this. So it's a black and white map, which is a grayscale map. Most of the time with masks, you use total black and total white to separate these colors. But if you have a gray in between, it takes the average of both. So how do we create a mask like this? Let's go back to Canva. As you can see here, I can duplicate this page. So now in this page, we can change the colors and make everything black and white. So what do we need to delete? I only want the text and this little line around here to be black or white. And everything else should be opposite. So I'm going to delete all of these shapes. Change the color of the text to black instead of blue. Also, this little cube around here. Then we select the background and make that totally white. This label here also has a color, so make sure that it's white. And the transparency should be 100. So now we have a mask. For this, again, just go to Share, Download, make sure it's PNG. Then, instead of all pages, we can just tick off page 1 and only download page 2. And here you can just download it. When you have downloaded this, you can go back into Blender, and here we can add this mask. The first thing that I want to do is create a new principled shader. So just Shift A and look for a principled BSDF. This principled shader is going to be gold. So I'm gonna put this into the surface of the material output and make this a nice golden color. And of course, the metallic should be all the way to 1. And now you can, of course, play around with the roughness however much you want. Now, this is the golden color that we have, but we only want this text to be gold. So let's grab an image texture. And here we're going to put our newly created mask. And we need a mix shader, because we're going to mix this principled shader, which is gold, and this principled shader, which is this label. So let's mix them together. And a normal mix shader without mask just mixes these two shaders together, right? So if the FAC is at 0, we have this shader, the gold. And if the FAC is at 1, we get this shader. And anything in between is kind of an average. But if we put the color of this mask in here, you can see that now the black and the white get separated from each other. So we have the golden text and everything else is just whatever we see here, right? Because if I turn or take this base color out of here and just make this black, for instance, we get this. Very, very cool. What we can also do with this, because it's a black and white texture map, we can put this into a bump node. So the color goes into the height of the bump node, and I will just put the bump node from the normal into the normal of the principled shader. And here you can see some height difference. So I actually want to put the strength way lower. Plus I want to have this text on top instead of carved in. So I will make sure that I will grab a color ramp and put it in between the texture map and the bump node. With the color ramp, you can switch these colors. And you can see that now we, of course, get the opposite. So the text lays on top. And the cool thing about the color ramp is that we can put it to ease as well. And now we can play around with these two sliders, because you can see that the text is very blocky. So if we just move this a bit around, you can see that now we get less blocky text. And of course, the strength is just a bit too high still. But playing with those things will create some very cool effects and some extra depth to your text and label overall. So this is your label. Awesome. So in my final result, you also saw that I had these cool shapes. So these plants, they were a bit more reflective. To make them more reflective, we need to create another mask. So just go back to Canva. I'll actually duplicate just this top one again. And here we don't want the text, so we can delete the text. We can delete this extra little cube around here. And from this white thing here, we should make the transparency all the way at 100. And now we can start thinking about the mask, right? So we know that we don't need the text, that's why we deleted it. But we do want these parts here. So you could do this in two ways. We can make everything else white and make these flowers black, or make everything else black and make the flowers white, right? So it doesn't really matter how you choose to do it, but in both ways it would work. So let's make everything else black. And to select this background, you kind of need to go in between these symbols. So here, make this also black. And all of these flowers are going to be pearly white. So also for this one, just download this. Now, inside Blender, we can again just use whatever we have here. I'm actually going to keep the base color at black and change this image texture to our newly created mask. And I'm going to put this mask into the roughness. And now you can see that we have a roughness difference. We still want to play around with this roughness because the roughness itself is not really what I want yet. I want them to be flipped first of all, and maybe not as strong. To edit this roughness, we can grab a color ramp. I'm actually gonna switch these again. To edit the color ramp, we actually need to know what these colors are doing. So if you have your thing all the way at white, you can see that the roughness is just set at 1. If we have both colors at all the way black, it is the same as the roughness set to 0. Now we can play around with the roughness. So I can put the white a little bit darker, right? So we have a bit more roughness in the label area. But if you think these plant shapes are a bit too reflective, you can just put the black a little bit higher, right? So the higher it is, the less reflective it will be. So yeah, that's a bit up to you what you want to create here and how you want this difference to see. You can also put them closer together so you have more of a sharper fall off, let's say, in between these two shapes. But it's a bit up to you what you really want to create here. So in this case, I think this looks quite cool. Now you can also create a thickness here. So you can literally just duplicate this, put it down here, then color goes into the vec, and this bump goes into this bump. If this is too much like bumpiness for you, you can of course change this as well. And in this case, we need to switch these colors again. So yeah, that is how we create this cool little label. And you're not forced to create the exact same label that I have. If you liked the color that we had before, like the white, please use that. But in general, this is what we need. Now I want you to save this and just save it as a label. Then later on, we can go inside Blender and import this label and make sure it also fits nicely upon our bottle. See you guys there.